We are moving on. What I've done here is tidied up the wiring a little bit. So I have these Molex connectors that are locking, and those are going to be used to group wiring together. So we have all of our connectors, and in total we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 connectors, and that brings all of the wiring from the back of the jet to the front. And again, we have this and this guy. These are the gear connectors, and then we have our right elevator, rudder, right flap, and then we have our smoke, air brake, left flap, left elevator, and then in here we have our nose gear, so all the cables coming in from under here, and then on this side we have our lights. So this is your light controller here, the afterburner that goes to the back, and the power supply for that. So this way everything is modular. When I put the nose on here, it'll just be a matter of making the mating connections and bringing them all forward. There's no wires hanging around, all untidy. Everything is really neatly tucked away, chafe protected, and I'm pretty happy with that setup. Time. So I'm gonna start working on the harnesses that go from these connectors to the front of the jet. Let me show you what I'm doing for those. Okay, so for the wiring harness, I've already started on this, and what I'm showing here is the 10-pin connector, and basically, I don't know, I think this is a Molex J, let's see, it comes from this kit that I bought on Amazon. It's a JST connection assortment kit. This particular one is I believe a 12 position, and I had to get this separately off of eBay. But basically, once you get this kit, you can go and get the ones with more connections on it. And basically, what happens is this kit comes with these pins. You get both the receptacle and the plug, or male and female. So for example, here's some of the female ones, and also in this kit you get the ones that mate to that. So you know, those will basically mate into those once they're in the housing. And so like I explained earlier, I like to have this on the end that is receiving the power. So your servos will be connected to a connector that has these style of pins, and then whatever is providing power, so from your receiver, the other end of that will be connected to these are the female style pins. So since I'm working on the side that on this end is going to be my receiver, and this end is going to be the harness to all the control surfaces. And basically this is a fairly straightforward process, whereby you make your own connectors. So as I'm showing here, I have hooked in 3 of the wires, and basically these are the wires that go to the elevator, these are the wires that go to the flaperon, and in this case this wire is going to my smoke system, and there's going to be one more here for the air brake. So what I'm going to show here is basically how I crimp those. So first of all, you can see here I've already crimped one. Let's see if we can show that. Yeah, there we go. We already crimped one. And crimping these is not complicated. Basically, I get the pin out from the packaging, and then let's see, we can line it up just right. And the key thing here is when you line this up, you see how I'm lining it up so that the rearmost pins right here grab onto the jacket, and then you have two sets of pins. So you have a set of pins, let's see, all the way in the back, right there, and then you have another set of pins in the middle here. So those are the ones, these guys right here. These guys right here will grab onto the wire. These guys in the back will grab onto the jacket. And so basically I'll start by securing the one that clamps onto the jacket, the pins in the back. You can see what that looks like right there. So the ones that are grabbing the jacket, the ones right in front of it are not quite pushed down. And then with the help of my tool, and you have to find the right tool, I can now line these up and then just crimp that down. And so now the connection is pretty good. You can see how the jacket is held, as well as the connection of the actual wire. So I'm going to redo those, and then once those are done, it's basically a matter of popping them in. So let's do this last one here. Okay, so this goes in, and it's a locking connector. So there's you can see the flap on the back, and that locks onto the connector. So we just slot them in one at a time, and you hear that click, and I'll show what that lock looks like. There we go, and you can see that flap basically locks onto the back, and those are not going to go anywhere. So this is going to be elevator, flaps, smoke, air brake, and obviously on the other side I'm going to put the servo connectors, because this end is going to go into my Smooth Flight 20, and then I have this wonderful machine here, the Rhino 5200, that I'll use to make, so like for example smoke, print that, and you just got to get the right style of label, and then we'll heat shrink that onto the actual wire before we put the other thing on. So I'm going to do that for everything, and then I'll show you what the result looks like in a little bit. So the harnesses are coming along. We can see I've done 2 of them. So and again, the reason I do it this way, might be overkill, but for me, when I have to maintain this jet, all I know is that all of my connections are 1, very neat and clean, and 2, all it takes is for me to reach in from the front, disconnect that entire thing, that entire harness, and the tail and the nose section can be separated. So I'm pretty happy with this. I'm gonna finish the rest of the harnesses. Again, as usual, everything is labeled so that when it's time to plug this stuff in, it should be pretty much a no-brainer for me to know what goes where. What the front looks like, here's a sneak peek. So all the wiring is gonna come right through right here, or basically under here, and then everything that goes to the Smooth Flight will come to the front, the side, and then we have our landing gear controller, and then obviously our turbine ground unit right there. So that's how everything's gonna look like. I've already checked with the canopy and the cockpit sitting here. We have enough clearance for all the servo wires and the power wires to come in here, so it should be no problem. We need to glue the glass portion of the canopy that sits in the back here, and then we need to fit the actual canopy in place and make sure that opens and closes, and then after that we need to figure out air. So the way these Skymasters work is you have these cylinders here that you use to lock the canopy. So there's one on either side, and there's that cylinder as well that's used for raising and lowering the canopy. So what I'm thinking to do is use servos to drive these three. I may use an actuators for this guy, I don't know yet. But in order for me to do that, I need to make sure that the rear portion here is glued and the canopy is actually hinged in place, and that all opens and closes. So here's a piece of glass that I'm talking about, and this guy is supposed to sit over there somewhere. And from what I recall, that can be a little bit tricky because the canopy, which is this guy right here, when it opens and closes, we need to have it such that this portion here clears the top of that or doesn't interfere with it. So basically it's going to be something like that. And so I'm just going to be looking as I mount this to make sure that that actually works really well. We are looking at the inside, and there's this wire here, and it attaches to these 2 points, and you can see how the wire sticks out. So there's one there and on the other side, and that's what the canopy is supposed to latch to. So what I'm going to do is, because I have access to this, I'm going to squeeze that out, get those points out, and then see if I can actually mount my canopy, and then proceed with measuring everything else and gluing the top piece of the glass. So after a little bit of fidgeting, I put the piece of metal back, and you can see how that hinges onto the canopy. So it fits just right on either side, and it just takes a little bit of patience to get that in there. And so with that, the canopy can now swing open and closed. So with that, we're gonna just see how the rear portion of the glass, so this guy right here needs to be glued. So see, you can see right there already, that's gonna be challenging. So I'm gonna have to figure out what I need to do here to get that to work. Yeah, so maybe, yeah. Ugh. All right. Here's the back of the glass, and I have removed all the paint from the bottom here, and kind of attempted to dry fit this. And what we can see here is these markings that I've made where, and there's markings, you know, like that marking and that marking corresponding to that marking and that, how this will sit in there after, you know, trying the canopy opening and closing a bunch of times. The other thing I also want to mention is you can see that I also removed some paint here. Basically this was a sharp edge, and I sanded it to make it, like, you know, slant a little bit. That way the canopy can slide over it easier. And then on the canopy side of things, I did the same thing, which is basically sand this so that there's an angle. You know, it used to be like really sharp, but now there's an angle this way. Just, and all of that is so that this can just like slide over the glass piece. So I'm gonna try one last time. I'm gonna line this, mount it, and I think what's gonna happen is I'm gonna have to use something like CA to glue this down, just because I need it to be really thin glue, because this can't come up, otherwise it'll prevent the canopy from opening. Here comes the moment of truth. So I've attached the canopy from the inside, and I'm trying to figure out where to glue this. I know that I'm gonna have to put some CA, so I've roughed off the front area here a little bit. And so what I'm trying to figure out is exactly where this back piece needs to sit in order for me to glue it permanently. But in order to do that, I'm going to position it and then, you know, open the canopy back and forth. So you can see that right there, it clears the canopy opening pretty good. So I want to lock that position. So I'm going to put the canopy down, and I'm going to tape this. Sort of like that. And so now I think one more check. It looks like it's pretty even. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna drop some CA to begin with in the back here, just a little bit, to hold that spot in place, and that way if I need to adjust the front and back, because maybe I taped this down wrong or something, I can fix that. So I've just dropped a little bit of CA in the back here. I'm not going to use accelerator because I want that to dry as clear as possible, and that looks like it's holding pretty well. So hopefully now I'm going to pull off the tape and still check that the canopy goes over the back piece as expected. It's a moment of truth. Okay, so almost. So I think I glued this a little bit that way, so I need to just adjust the front. When I glue the front, I need to bring it just a little bit this way. Yeah, this part is really the most difficult part of this build, I think. I finally glued down the front, and I think my alignment was correct. It wasn't off this or that way, it's just that this had been glued down, but the front was kind of sitting up. So when I touched that down, put CA on inside to secure that down, then everything seems to work well. So it's just one of those parts where you just, I find that I need to be really patient, move slowly, you know, test twice, check again before I put the CA down or the glue down. But now it looks like this opens really, really nicely. So you can see the results there. I have managed to convert the canopy raise lower to electric, and you can see there what that looks like. It's just a servo mechanism with the carf arm. I will show you what the measurements of that arm are, and just a regular, in this case, DS370 HV servo from Baja Hobbies that puts out about 37 kilogram force. So that seems to work really well. So just glued to the bottom of the fuselage here, and obviously the thing here is, even though I mounted that servo on a fiberglass plate, you can see that there with angle brackets to hold it. So I forget, here's the carf servo arm that I use for the canopy raiser lower. It's about 49.5 millimeters long. This is what I like about the servo, and the reason why I chose the servo over, say, like an actuonics, is that I can just open this by hand, basically just lift the front of the canopy, and because it's a servo, it'll just give. And so here's another view of what that looks like. Nothing really complicated. I just had to cut a relief hatch here so that you know, because as the servo comes up, obviously there's a circular movement and the rod wants to move back, so I just cut a relief in the back there to help with that. And if I needed to go more, I can just add a little bit more. You can see right there that the servo arm doesn't quite get to be the straight position. So it can push the canopy even higher, but I'll start there for now and go from there. So I've plugged in the canopy servo, and let's see if I can show this on the video. Yeah, so we're starting at about a PWM of 1096. And when we go up, it opens. Right now my limit's about 1800 PWM or so, and I can open up in there, as I mentioned earlier, and this works really well. So we are working on the front end of the front end, so I need to figure out what the front layout is going to look like, because I'm considering just putting a single servo and having a separate locking mechanism that actually pierces out of here or just in the middle here, and that would be pretty straightforward thing to do with just one servo here and with a straight mechanism down. But to do that, I gotta make sure that the nose is assembled. So there's this stuff that comes in there, your brace in there, as well as, I should show this, you can see that block of wood right here, which I cut a relief so that I could fit the servo arm that's going to raise and lower the canopy, and that actually works out pretty well. So those three pieces come out in that wood kit, and looking at this kit, there are arrows showing you which way is up. So if, for example, this is a top side, doesn't look like the same on this one, so I'm guessing it could go either way because that looks pretty symmetric. So I am gonna just mate these two, so basically just drive one into the other, sort of like that. And then at the top here you've got the ball head of the screw, and that needs to match with those relief that's been cut in there. And we have this piece that's gonna go on the front section here, and keeping the up arrow here pointing up. So I just need to get that in there, sort of like that. And what I had to do was open up those holes with my X-Acto knife because it was a very tight fit. I also beveled some of the edges, you can see that there, just to make it easier to fit. Then the other thing that comes in that kit is this, and I believe this is what's going to be used to lock this in place, because it looks like you can see that fits in there perfectly. So my guess is, yeah, so that fits in there perfectly. So my guess is this guy goes in here, and then on the back side we glue that guy to lock it in place. So I'm gonna go do that, and then we'll be back here. So inserting this lock is a pain in the butt because all four sides actually have locking mechanisms on top and bottom. So the only way I figured out how to do this is to kind of put it in place. You can see those four arms are slightly offset, so I started with them twisted sort of counterclockwise, just a little, each of the arms slightly to the left of where it needs to go, and then you get them started in the slots, and then you twist it into place. There we are, finally rotated that piece, that locking plate into place, and I think I'm just gonna glue everything together because my batteries are going to be held on that potentially, and I don't want that to be loose. So finally seated everything together, so that to that, and that to that, and then the back plate also has been CA'd, so this is all glued together. I might decide to glass it later, seeing as it is a bit flimsy. I know that the nose cone is going to come in here and help put tension to this, so I'm not so sure how that'll work out, but for now I'm pretty happy with this, and I can start to figure out where I want my locking servo to go. So I think I've decided how I'm gonna lock my canopy, and I've mounted this servo on the front here. It's a mini servo, and it's gonna push a rod through here. We're just gonna go underneath the skin and engage the canopy somewhere in the middle here. So I'm trying to figure out how to drill that hole, and it's kind of hard to show, but basically I'm gonna flip this over and then try to drill the hole. But before I do that, I want to make sure that the canopy is down as tight as it possibly can be. So I'm gonna secure that down with tape, and I'm gonna triple check this, because once I drill that hole, that's how the this bar here, which goes through, is gonna hold the canopy down. So what I'm gonna do here is attempt to map sort of this hole onto the top of the canopy. And so I just put a strip of tape here and ran the the locking cylinder, you can see right there, through that hole. And what I'm gonna do is close this down as much as possible, and then I guess just wrap this around like that and tape it to the canopy. Just push this down as much as possible. Okay, so now hopefully when I lift this, it comes off with the piece of tape so that I can get the markings transferred over. Okay, so this came apart, but it kind of came apart because this was stuck to right here. So anyway, this gives me a rough idea of where to start. I might redo that again and just put tape so that only the center portion here is stuck to the side, and then we'll retry. Okay, so the lock is finally done, and you can see right there. Let's see if I move the servo. Yeah, so that's unlocked, and the canopy can open, and then locked, and that's not going anywhere. The only thing I want to mention is that the tip of the lock there, you can see that it's tapered, and that tapering is intentional so that you can kind of force the door down, because sometimes when the door goes down it might not fully go to the bottom, so the hole might be a little bit misaligned. That taper at the tip there allows the locking rod to pull the canopy down. Alright, so final piece to this, you can see I have added epoxy E20NS on all the joints because I intend for this to be permanent. And since I added the servo up here, I had to modify the nose cone. Basically, these two pieces of wood that were up here to lock the canopy into the center, just move them down a little bit so that they don't interfere with that. And that was just trial and error. So now when the nose cone goes on, these two guys are gonna grab somewhere in the middle. And with that, this is looking pretty good.